All right, this is Kay. Okay, so yeah, the lighting overall looks pretty good. Right now, the biggest issue is the camera is really crazy and needs to be toned down. Let's take a look at the Maya. All right, here we are in the Maya file. I'm going to select this camera. So if anything, I would do straight cuts, and the simplest thing to do would be to double click on the timeline, right mouse click, go to tangents, and then stepped. Oh, why is that still moving? Is this parented to something? Oh, the camera is locked. That's interesting. Let me unlock this. Okay, that's why I think it didn't change. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Oh, there's some extra thing in here, but take out one of these. Alright, let's watch that again. So to me that is infinitely more watchable. We still probably have more shots than we need. Kind of like this shot. Maybe we take out these and just shift click and dragging to select those, right mouse click, delete. Let's try it now. Maybe this comes in a little earlier. Like here. Shift select. Something like that. I don't know. I think that was better before. Anyway, you can play with it, but the point is you really need to simplify the camera. But the lighting overall I thought looked really good. Next up is Candace. So yeah, I would say this is way too dark. And it also has a kind of crazy flying around camera. Um, but I like that you have some indoor light sources. The thing is, if it was open to the outside light like that, there'd be a lot of, the daylight coming into the room as well through that door. But, I mean, in a way, you're not wrong that she would be kind of silhouetted. Maybe it's not too dark. I don't know. I don't know. It looks too dark to me. So let's take a look. So, yeah, like I was saying, it looks a little dark. You do have a light going in there, but it doesn't seem to be doing much for some reason. Like anything. That's really weird. Sometimes when it's not doing anything, I like to turn it up really high. I wonder if there's oh, decay rate is quadratic. Well, that's why. Yeah, so it's just dropping off really, really quickly. I might, for something like this, I might turn that off. And then you'll get kind of a more predictable result. Maybe let's go up a little bit. That looks like some bright light is sort of coming into the room. And then it's still, the rest of the room is relatively dark, which makes sense if daylight was pouring in from one angle. But the other thing is that there's bounce light. So if bright light is hitting the floor, it's going to bounce around the room a little bit. So, I might throw like another another light in there. Turn this around. Whoops. My manipulators aren't liking me. Obviously that's too bright. But, you know, let's do like, you know, just enough to get this sense of, you know, some bounce light. And then now I'm getting the feeling a little bit more like, you know, there's interior lights. You can still see those. It is a lot brighter outside, and you're getting that kind of rim light on her edge. But the outside light is really affecting the inside, and then it's also bouncing around a little bit. So, you know, maybe go a little wider on this. Yeah. So I like that a little better. I didn't get your textures to work just because the project files were sort of all over the place instead of in just one project folder. And so it didn't find them. But yeah. And then the camera thing. Is this the camera that flies? Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy camera. So you really need to simplify your camera. Whoops. Movement. So. And then especially around here it gets really nuts. So I mean, I think that might be okay. I don't know why we're going there. Let me just kind of jump through these. Yeah, those are not different enough from each other. That one's different enough. Yeah, I wouldn't flip the camera all the way around like that normally. You might have to relight for that shot too. And then these, I don't know why they're those either. So there's just way too many camera shots here. But I'm going to go ahead and change them to stepped. And get rid of that, get rid of that. Keep that. Maybe get rid of everything else. Okay, let's watch this again. Still needs some work. You got some popping stuff going on there and spinning around things on the animation. Oh, and our animation really starts and stops. Like you couldn't even really see what was going on with the animation because the camera was flying around so much. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of frozen starts and stops in this. And she looks a little off balance in spots too. So I think you could work more on your poses as well. Especially kind of the in-betweens to keep her. Are they all? I'm wondering if it's all on everything on her is on auto tangent or. Oh, I think it wasn't. Well, that helps a little bit. Yeah, check her balance, make sure her roots, and that way she gets up is look, she just sort of floats up. There isn't that, you know, go back to your reference on that. You had some really nice reference for how the body gets slipped up. Yeah, so keep working on it. Next up is Lupe, and it looks like all we have here is an image from SketchUp imported into mine, like a snapshot. Which, you know, I'd have to say doesn't really bear any relation to the assignment, so there's not really much I can say to this. Okay, this is Natalie, so I'm sorry. This is Natalie. Looks like you got some lights going in there, but you had some other problems. Let's take a look at the Maya file. Okay, so here we are in this file, and seems to be working okay. Let's check your render settings. We are using Maya Hardware 2.0. Name.number.extension, frame padding 4, that all looks good. From 1 to 120, that looks good. I'm just going to do like a JPEG sequence or something. Yeah, and it should go into your folder. I'm just going to call this Natalie Render. And you got HD 540, which is fine. You could also do full HD if you wanted to. Either way, let's just check that you've got ambient occlusion on. You do. Do you have anti-aliasing? You do. Okay, should be fine. Let's do a quick test render. That's from a previous file. Okay, so that is rendering out. I would say there's probably maybe too many shadow angles going on here, but we can get into the lighting later. Let's just see if we can get your render to work. So in rendering, I'm going to do render batch render and low access. I don't know what it's doing. Continue. So I can see down here at the bottom of the screen it's starting to render. I'll just pause while I'm waiting. Okay, now that it's gotten going, you can see the progress here a little bit. It's on 44, looks like. Seem to jump ahead. Seems like it's done now. Let's take a look in the script editor. See what it has to say. That's 110. I thought we went to 120. The other thing to check in your render settings, because that was a little suspicious, is the camera. So this camera is perspective. Oh, but we rendered this camera. Okay, that was what was in there. So you just have to make sure you've got the right camera selected, because I'm not sure whether I did or not. Probably not. But either way, let's take a look at those files. I'm going to open up After Effects. Okay, and one thing that's helpful if you want in Maya, if you just copy the whole path of where these are, Control C, and then I'm going to go into After Effects and double click here to import, and I can just paste that down at the bottom, Control V, and then what? That's strange. Okay. Normally that works. I'll put them here. Okay, so I'm going to select this, import a JPEG sequence, import, and then drag this down to here. Okay, and let's press 0 on the numeric keypad and see, and it's lit, and we have the sequence working. So I can't say what went wrong with what you did, but maybe, you know, watching that you found something you could follow. I seems like I picked the wrong camera, but you know, if you just go back in the render settings, when you do go to render, just make sure you pick the right camera in here, which I'm actually not sure which one it is if you're seeing, because there's a few of them. Not that one. Probably not that one. Maybe it's just a perspective. I don't know. So the other thing is just make absolutely sure that you don't have like Arnold renderer selected or something like that, because we are rendering with Maya Hardware 2.0. As far as the lighting itself, I would say I don't know, maybe if you're using a whole bunch of spotlights, but if you're going to use these, I would see if I could sort of soften the penumbra angle a little bit. Does that help at all? Yeah, it seems like it does. And what I'm looking at is these kind of hard lines down here that don't look so great. Okay. So what I'm adjusting here are these hard angles on these things. Let's look at another one. See how that softens that a little bit? And it's kind of distracting when it's really hard like that. Especially this real bright one. So that already looks better to me. Also, I would say this one's a bit hot. 8. Let's try like 5, 3, 1. You know, that looks a bit better to me. I think that was just too bright. Yeah, so I think that's a little better. And you can fill in some areas here. Like I don't like things falling completely to black here. So you might throw, I don't know, a directional light or an area light in, or just something to fill in the shadow areas, because indoors you're going to get light bouncing around a lot, and it should fill in the dark areas. Oops. You know, and you can keep that dim, you know, if you want to keep those in shadow, but see how just a little bit of fill is better, like compared to 0, where they go to complete black. Even having just even 0.1, just something to fill in the shadows, looks nicer. So there's a few tips for you to improve the lighting. Okay, this is Julia. Alright, so yeah, you've got, so you're going for sort of a nighttime lighting, which is good. I think what looks odd to me is that the giant shadow on the wall, and that's presumably from moonlight, and but then there's also a shadow behind him, and you can't really, or is that from like a nearby room light or something filling him in? Probably would lose that shadow maybe, and this just seems too bit much. Also, like if the moonlight was coming in that bright through the window, we'd see the shadow of the window more, you know, on the wall, like it would block where it's coming in. So that will be something to think about. I mean, what's good is that you got an overall kind of nighttime look. Let's take a look at the. Okay, I just wanted to check out the different lights you've got going on here. So there's a point light in here, but it doesn't seem to be doing much. So to me, that's more like as if that were off. Yeah, I guess it's just lighting up the light itself. But if there was the light was on, it would be lighting up the room more. So that's interesting. Okay. So I think it's either kind of on and it's lighting up the room, or it's off. You've got this area light coming through that window, lighting in this direction, and that's a real dark blue. And you've got this one coming in through that direction, and that's why I'm saying it would like I don't know if it'll recognize the shadows, but let's try like just see what happens if we change this to can we change this to directional? You know, it would block the, you know, the idea is that it should only really come through the windows. And maybe for what is it, a spotlight behind him? Is that supposed to be like a room light behind him? Like a, if you know, maybe like if that's like an indoor light, you might want to sort of warm that up a little bit. And let's see if turn off the shadows. Yeah, I think it's better without the big shadow, and have the shadows more come from the other direction, like the moonlight being a more dominant thing, but kind of filling him in with that indoor light. You could have an indoor light shadow too, but it gets kind of busy. But yeah, good work on this. You definitely got to look. Okay, this is Anton. This is looking improved. Nice lighting and animations coming along. Might be good to have some little more facial animation if possible. His face looks a little blank on some of this stuff. You mentioned something being too bright, but I'm not sure what you meant. Let's go back. So you said the thing wasn't in shot, but it was too bright. Did you... Oops. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Did you unlink this from the lights? Just, yeah, break light links. Let me just check. And this is what? NURBS plane shape. Oh, it's connected to all those lights. Okay, now they're not connected. Oh, I would have had to select the lights and the object and then do break light links to break it. So now, and you said this was indeed incandescence map down there, okay. And let's see how that renders. It does look bright. Maybe does hardware render not recognize light linking? I thought it did. Something to do with being NURBS or area lights or something. It's interesting because it looks right here. I don't know. Just out of curiosity, let's see if we break this. Yeah, it sure does look quite lit. Maybe it's the default light has to be off too. Maybe that's the problem. Nope. Alright, I don't know. It would probably take a little more fiddling around. And then you were asking about depth of field. Is there a better shot for that? You know, something in the foreground and something in the background. So let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, I'm gonna select the camera and turn on depth of field and select this display, heads up display. What is it? Focused focal length? Oh, that's just the current focal length. What was the thing that showed you how far it was? Object details? Distance from camera, yeah. So 7.984. Okay, so select camera and focus distance 7.984. Okay, so that's sharp. Maybe you want to increase one of the two of these a little bit, you know, so that not so much is out of focus. Surprised I'm having to adjust it this much, but okay. You know, you can see it gets pretty soft by back there. Okay, and then, and let's say we wanted to then change focus to him, so you would set key on the focus distance, and I know he's going to move, but, well, alright, so let's do the opposite. Let's focus on him just to make this more sensible. That's 29.285. 29.285. Okay, and then, whoops. Yeah, okay, so then we have a nice, this thing's nicely out of focus, so just make sure we set a key on that, and then let's say, you know, when he comes up to here or something, we'll focus on this. 7.984, so 7.984. I have auto key on, so that should, yeah. Alright, so you see the f-stop changing from there to there. It looks kind of weird, but almost looks like this stuff's shrinking more than blurring. You know, hardware render f-stop is sort of, you know, not, you know, that realistic. But at least that's how you could do it. And but overall, your lighting looked really good. Okay, this is Warren. Alright, there's something really high contrast looking about this. Oh, I don't know if you did any kind of post effect, but you know, with his really dark skin, I think you're going to want to fill in the light because they're losing all the detail on his face there. So I think you're going to want to fill in a little bit of light there. Yeah, I mean, overall it looks really good. You have a nice sky image here. Is that moving, that sky? Oh, that's cool. That's moving a little bit. I like that. I just think you need more light on his face. Let's take a look at the map. Okay, yeah, I mean, as you said, it does look a lot different from the viewport. Maybe make sure we just do raw, so then that's still different. Interesting. Apply output transform to render. The other thing is maybe get some other light in here to get some contrast on his face, you know, like another, I don't know, what do you have in here? It's got some sun. Is he completely in shadow here? Is that what's happening? Maybe re-angle the sun so that there's something to get some of the shapes back in his face, some brightness and contrast, because, you know, especially with the dark skin, it's really, you're losing all the detail, and I think you want something to help describe those shapes. So get some light to hit them more from the side or from more of an angle to kind of get some of those shapes back, even if you'd have to do like a really unrealistic light. So if I just sort of threw something in here. Okay, here's that light I just dropped in there, and then let's go back to your, choose it. I feel like I'm starting to get more of the face detail back. I just turned the shadows off. Maybe that's too much, but we could, tone it down a little bit. Let's just see what it compared to having nothing there. I don't know, it seems to help a little bit. That's probably too much. But you could also just link it to his face. So yeah, that's the main thing to work on, but okay, this is Nathan. Alright, some improvement on the animation here. It's a little slow and floaty. Might try to, kind of speed up, especially him hitting the button, and maybe put a hold on that as well. This doesn't look like a hardware render because we're seeing all the joints and cameras and stuff like that. It looks more like a play blast. And as you mentioned, the lighting was done for Arnold, not for the hardware render, so it's too bright. So you'd want to tone it down a bit. I did spend some time looking at that normal issue where the stuff with the normal maps don't render out, and was not successful in figuring it out. I'm not sure why that is, but thought it maybe had something to do with color management, but I turned that off and that didn't make any difference. So I really don't know. I would just say maybe just break your normal maps for now and don't use them unless you can solve it. But yeah, I mean, but as far as kind of hardware lighting, obviously this is much too bright. It's a question of turning the intensity down. Next up is Shelly, and yeah, the assignment was to turn in a hardware render of movie, which but you just turned in a Maya file, and it wasn't an archive scene. You'd be turning in the archive scene, not just the individual Maya scene file. To do the archive scene, you do file archive scene, and that'll create a zip file that you can return in, which would have all your textures and supporting files and all that. Yeah, just once again to animate. There's no keyframes on him that I can see, so set a keyframe. So I select all here, S to set a keyframe, change the time. Move controls, like let's say, move the root. Although this rig appears to be broken somehow. That's interesting. But either way, I mean, since you don't have anything, you might want to start over with a fresh rig. But I'm just moving a few controls, around, and obviously move more of them, and then hit all, and then S to set keyframe, and then you should see the animation between the two. So that's, the basic functions of how you do it, but you just obviously need to do a lot of poses and move that forward. So yeah, I can't give you much credit for it because you didn't really do the assignment, which was to do a hardware render. So if you want to go back and do that, I can then give you credit for it. Okay, this is Jesse. Yeah, I don't know if the animation looks real jerky. I don't know if you were trying to do that or but it looks kind of distracting to me. You were saying something about a tree missing. We can take a look at the Maya file for that. Okay, so regarding the animation, tend to select all and go into change the tangents to auto. Let's see what we get now. It's better, but the feet, I think I talked about this before, where the feet, none of the feet are ever sticking, they're all kind of slipping and sliding around. The rest of it is okay. Timing seems a little off, that jump, that big jump seems a little slow motion. And as far as your tree, where's your tree? This tree right here, I guess, is not. Is that like paint effects or something? Oh, I just showed did a display. Is that a tree that you wanted? Oh yeah, it is showing up where too, huh? Crazy. You might try modify, convert paint effects to geometry, or is that? Yeah, crazy. That's really weird. Yeah, that's really bizarre. It's like it only shows up against other objects. Very strange. I've never seen anything quite like that before. Let me just create a new camera just for fun. Yeah, it's still doing it. That is amazing. Sure, two-sided lighting's on? No, that's not it. What about where's the polygon shift right mouse click toggle back face culling? Is that no? Wow, I have never seen anything like this before. Maybe it's because of the yeah, as soon as you hide that, it's back to normal. That is fascinating. Oh look, when I'm like close it works, and then suddenly when I pull back, oh, it must be when the camera is outside of the geometry of that shape that it does that. So as soon as I'm, let's select the camera and it's hard to tell from here. Yeah, but it's fine. So that I think, yeah, there's the camera. Is it outside at this point? Doesn't seem, actually it seems like it's still inside. Is it some like weird clipping plane thing or something? I don't know. I'm stumped. That's crazy. And then as soon as I get rid of that, it's fine. Huh. So weird. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really stumped. I'd have to play with it more. But I mean, I think the lighting and stuff. I think that it's just too dark on this surface here, so kind of get more light to fill in your shadow areas because it's pretty much solid black. So get a light come from the other direction to fill those in. That would be the main thing to fix here, but otherwise it's looking good. And yeah, sorry I haven't been able to figure out the trees, but frankly they don't really match the other trees anyway, so I think it'd be fine to leave them out. But it'd be good to figure out what's going on there because that's really